And we're back with not only another podcast, but the cutest, most adorable guest that I will probably ever have. And it's not
Thanks,
you, Roy, I'm
James.
really sorry. Patsy. Hey, Patsy. Patsy, is that the name?
No, the dog's called Win. The dog's called Win.
Oh, of course, Win, obviously. Bless. Patsy's adorable. And hi, Alex Forder. How are you? Welcome to the Goonerverse. You well?
Yeah, thanks, mate. Appreciate that. Oh, look at that. A round of applause as well. Thanks, Roy. Yeah, appreciate the call. And looking forward to this.
Everyone, this is Alex Forder. Mate, absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. All links to channels in the description below. And of course, we have Laura as well. How are you, Laura?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to make my debut.
Absolute pleasure. This is all still, of course, round of applause. This is all still pretty new, generally, the podcast. So we're figuring it out as we go along. But thank you all for jumping on. And this might not come out in the edit, but there are a few Wi-Fi problems. So we're just going to do our best and just see how it goes. I want to do as little talking as possible because I'm the main culprit on the Wi-Fi problem front. But look, it's the summer, which means, we don't have any actual football to talk about. We've got the Euros. We'll have to talk about Saka because he was brilliant, wasn't he? But transfer stuff is starting to pick up pace. Last week, I was here with Sharoy. I was here with another Alex, the different knock, and Jess. And I loosely mentioned Calafiori as like we've been linked and, he might be available. And that picked up pace very, very quickly. So we've got to touch base with that. But the last few days, actually we're in the last day, a lot has come out around Emile Smith-Rowe and a potential departure, which all feels a bit sad, but potentially necessary as well. Sure, I didn't even ask how you were. Sorry, before I went into all that, I didn't check how you are. How are you, mate?
Well, I'm better than your Wi-Fi, bro. I'll tell you that, mate.
I know. It's fine. Hopefully like I said,
good.
I'll talk as little as possible on this one. Let's go straight to Laura. Laura, we've only, I think, done one stream before. The Wi-Fi held up then. But Emile Smith-Rowe, linked with a move to Fulham. We'll ask the kind of deeper questions in a bit, but I kind of just want your general reaction to it first. I don't know. I mean, from how do you feel about the player? Does it feel like a good move for him? And Fulham is that the club? What kind of fee? Just a kind of general reaction to it all.
I mean, at a very base level, it's good that he has a plan for where he's going in terms of, I don't see him making his way back into Arsenal. So this sort of ongoing saga of whether whether Arteta has a plan for him or not, it's nice that it at least is reaching a conclusion if he is off to Fulham. Personally, I hold Smith-Rowe, very close in my heart. I think he basically saved Arteta's job a couple of seasons ago with all of the goals that he scored. On a very personal note, the North London derby in 2021, I think he scored maybe the first goal, is the day that I got engaged. So I have a very kind of like personal love for Emile Smith-Rowe. And I have these little glasses at home that's got the kind of scorers on, which I was given as an engagement present. So purely from a personal point of view, it's really disappointing that he wasn't able to kick on from that, because I genuinely think he carried the team for a bit, him and Saka. And I don't know what the fee is like for Fulham, but I know you guys were talking about it last week, but I would want it to be, upwards of 30, 35, like that's what I think we should be pushing for. I would have hoped maybe somewhere a bit more mid-table, I think, than Fulham, because of the quality that I think he does have, but ultimately he wants to play, and that's not what he's got at Arsenal. So to summarise, I'm sad to see him go, I really am, but ultimately he doesn't seem like he has a place in Arteta's plan, so it's better that he just goes and we kind of look back on what we had and that be the end of it.
Yeah. So hold on. So the other two scorers in this gift were they Aubameyang and Saka?
Yes.
There we go. What a lovely gift. That's really cool.
Isn't it nice? Yeah.
Well, I remember that we'd lost the first 3 games of the season. I remember that win well. We lost the first 3 games of the season, Arteta out, all that was happening, and ended up sort of getting 2 more wins. Tottenham had just lost their 2. And that was a big day in the North London derby. And Emil Smith-Rowe, yeah, he felt like a player that, I don't know, when you had your sort of two players from Hale End step up on that day, it felt like Arsenal's future was bright. And it has been very bright, but we just thought Smith-Rowe would be more of a part of it. Forder, Emil, 30 to 35 million, potentially Fulham. And look, I think other clubs will be interested. I don't think this is actually something that's going to be resolved that quickly, even though rumours are starting to pick up. But is that where you are with it? Just sort of 35 million? And, or do you want to kind of fight for another season for him?
No, I'm in the same boat, really, as Laura. I think it's time we move Emil on. For his sake, I hope it is wrapped up quite quickly. For the club, I hope it lingers on a little bit. I want a bit of a bidding war. We've seen with PSR at the moment, prices are rising, rightfully or wrongfully. But I think 35 would be fair. But if the club can get more, that'd be amazing. I mean, if we look through all the sales we've had in our recent history, we're looking at a similar fee as our highest ever fee, which is pretty shocking, really. Let's be honest. But I think we've moved on past Emil. We're playing a system now where he doesn't really fit. He's not really a left winger in the mould that Arteta wants. He's not really number 10 for us. I don't think he can really play that left 8 role to that level that we need now against the City team that we're playing against. So I think it is time for Emil to go on. Whether or not that's done quickly or not, it's a different matter.
Yeah, where are you with it, Shiroi?
Look, I didn't quite get engaged on the date of the North London derby when he scored, so I can't say I've got that level of an emotive response. But look, man, the song is Saka and Emil Smith-Rowe, man. We were calling him the Croydon De Bruyne. There's this element of, he's got that sort of, sounds a bit like a South London roadman. He's relatable to everyone in London. He's just, you wanted to be his mate. You wanted him to succeed. Laura quite rightly says that that Chelsea game when he came on that December, after we lost 17.5 million games in a row, he comes on and scores and does save Arteta his job. And he really kicks on after that, man. I think, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't it that season he was our top scorer from the bench, or maybe it was the season after? Really, really important goals, a massive contributor. Yeah. And all too often, I've looked at so many of these players over the years, right? I think I'm not saying that he's at the same level of talent as these players. Maybe he could have been, I don't know. But when I look at players like Abu Diaby, when I look at a Jack Wilshere, and I had that level of, this could be the next big thing. Let me be clear with Smith-Rowe. This isn't work rate. This isn't a lack of passion for the club. This isn't a lack of application. Injuries have hurt his career. That's memories are short, right? I mean, the tabloids were saying that Saka was a completely sort of defunct winger a few weeks ago, but now he's the best thing since sliced bread, right? Memories are short at international level and club level, because it wasn't that long ago in the scheme of a footballing career that Smith-Rowe was actually an integral part of this squad. But the minute you're out of the fold and a team improves and accelerates at the rate at which this Arsenal team has, you're a distant memory, because now Odegaard has clamped down that position. And people are going, Emil can't press like that, though. Emil doesn't have the vision like that, though. He's not really going to be able to drop deep, and link up on the right-hand side with Saka when he needs to like that, though. And then we're talking about the left-sided 8. That's a position that we're saying that nobody's really been able to nail down. But I think if push came to shove, I don't know, I might get slated in the comments for this. But I think if push came to shove, if you asked the vast majority of Arsenal fans whether they would want maybe even Kai Havertz playing in the left-sided 8 over Emil Smith-Rowe. Everyone knows how Havertz in midfield went last year, but I think quite a few people might lean towards Havertz over Smith-Rowe if they're taking the emotion out of it. And I say that to say that memories are relatively short, right? And look, I'm mortified at the fact that we have to let go of this player, and it looks like he's going. And it hurts me even more because everything that I'm reading is Emil Smith-Rowe wants to fight for his place at Arsenal. I don't think the kid wants to go. I think he sees that there's a career there. He's being forced to leave. But if you, I wasn't on YouTube a few years ago. But if you saw me a few years ago, I would have said, stop being sentimental. We're not good enough to be sentimental. You need to get value for players. If there's a better option, you upgrade. We need to win. And I'm now contradicting myself because I feel like shit because a guy that I really rate has to go. But that's the name of the game. This can't be an easy decision for the club. But then we talk about value. Forder, you were talking about, the level at which he would rank were he to be sold for 30 or 35 in the scheme of Arsenal. I'm looking at the scheme of the market generally. Now, if Brennan Johnson is going for what Brennan Johnson went for, I'm sorry, but I this might be Arsenal bias, but I think Smith Rowe has a higher ceiling than Brennan Johnson. And I think if he could stay fit, Smith Rowe elevates the team more than Brennan Johnson has for Tottenham. And that's the market that I'm looking at. Not necessarily the Arsenal market, because it's worldwide news that we get shafted in the market. I'm looking at what other people pay for players of a similar ilk, and I want that. So, James, you'll remember last week when we were talking about, I think it was Smith Rowe and Nketiah and Reece, we were talking about letting them go, what we'd want. And I said, I want the most money for Smith Rowe because I think he's got the highest ceiling, and I stand by that. So I am looking at the 35 mark. Ideally, for someone with an England cap and someone with the level of sort of affinity to the club, you'd get more. But I understand that injuries are a concern and they sort of devalue an asset. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm muddled, man. I don't want to let him go, but I kind of do want to let him go because it's Hale End and it's pure profit and we need to buy and all of that. But we are where we are, man.
But Smith Rowe is such an interesting one because when he came through, it wasn't just that it was a young player coming through and Hale sort of saved Arsenal, whatever, and Arteta. It was also that we didn't have anyone in that position. We signed Willian. Like, that's where we were. Obviously a club legend now. But Smith Rowe, he came in, he played in the 10. I think it was Xhaka and Oneni behind him. And it's like, if you ever want an example of what pure balance can do to a team, that's the game to watch. Because he was a youngster. I'm not saying he wasn't ready for that level, but that was like a big jump, right? From Arteta not really using him to suddenly at home to Chelsea, save my job, please. Like, it was a big jump, but just purely getting a 10 in the team and getting a little bit of a pass and move player, a little bit of a combo player in there, and suddenly we had something else. And then you had this runner from midfield, he was providing goals, he was linking up with Saka. And we signed Ødegaard, 6 months later? Yeah. No, maybe not even. I can't remember. It was soon after. Maybe it was that same season. My point is, we bring in Ødegaard and we move away from sort of having a 10 and having this more of a sort of a flat midfield, if you like, where Ødegaard's playing both deep, but he's getting up the pitch, whatever. Then we play with our wingers on the touchline, because when Smith Rowe was on the left, he was tucking inside to get Tierney on the overlap. And now we're in this situation where there's no position for Smith Rowe. There's no 10 in our team, and there's no winger who moves inside. So he's kind of there because we know he's talented and he's got something, but the team has never really been built to get the best out of that. It's a bit like when we did have Tierney the season we signed Zinchenko, and Zinchenko did miss some football through injury, and we're just asking Tierney to invert. But basically, he just do what he was doing. It could be a different player, and we never tweaked it to get the best out of him either. So where I feel for Smith Rowe and all this is he has had injuries, but I ultimately think even if he'd been fit, the team was just kind of moving beyond him anyway. And unless he found a way to basically be Jack Grealish on the wing, he wasn't going to have a part. I don't know how you feel about that, Laura.
I agree, because I think the few kind of cameos he made this season, and I know everyone was sort of desperate for him to do well, and we're absolutely gassing up these sort of like 10, 15-minute cameos, but you could feel the disconnect between what he used to do. He would literally just come onto the pitch and do that again, which is still, still energetic. He's still a great dribbler, but it just doesn't fit. It's just kind of like effort for the sake of effort without it actually slotting into the system that we play now. So it's just it just doesn't have a place in this team anymore. And I think you could just see that towards the end of the season when we had to bring him on a couple of times, all the passion, all the effort, not much output, not because the player is poor, but because it's just not the right system for him to play in.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm with you. And I didn't want to say it because what Arsenal fans can be like online. And we've seen evidence of this in the last week. But when he would sort of start against Forest, and look, tell me if you guys disagree, but everyone was going, what a half. Smith Rowe showing us. And I thought, he's all right. Really? I wasn't seeing it. I saw, he's a neat player. And I just don't think he's... Do you know what? Luton at home, when he started that game, I thought, okay, he's found some rhythm here. But, we were pretty comfortable all game. And again, it wasn't... He didn't play to a level where I thought he's got to have some sort of part to play in the run-in. I don't know, Forder, if you were Arteta and you got Smith Rowe, where would you be using him? Would you? Is he good enough, or is his potential good enough to be tweaking the system in any way to get the best out of him, or is it a case of you got to fit with what Arteta's doing now?
No, it's definitely the second, isn't it? Let's be honest. You have to fit Arteta's system now. We saw recent comments with Bielsa talking about the change in football and the systems coming out. I feel like Emil's almost like 10 years too late. He's got that little bit of maverick in him. I remember the comments from Carragher saying he's like the best ball carrier in the whole country. You know, this is a guy who can run through the midfield, take on players, essentially break the lines, break other people's systems. But for Arteta, that's not what he wants. We've seen it with the wingers. We see it with Saka sometimes. And I know people get frustrated and think, you know, he turns in or he turns back and retains possession. That's not Emil's game. And I think the move to Fulham kind of makes sense. I could see them tweaking their tactics to work for Emil. I could see him doing really, really well there. But unfortunately, we're in a position now where we have got we're like 1% away from the title now. I don't think Emil takes us up that 1%. We've got to be really careful with the next recruitments we make and the decisions we make for us to move on. We're already spending, I think people forget this, if Calafiori goes through, we're 70 million down straight away because Raya's coming in as well.
Yeah. So
we've got to start recouping this money. I know I was talking about money. It's not our money. However, it does make a difference by the end of the summer, and we've got to start moving on. And this is a player, unfortunately, that we've moved past now. So I hate to say it, but that it might be the end of that song.
Yeah, and I mean on that elevation, you know, that we're 1% away or whatever, right? It's no secret that the fan base is becoming a bit more ruthless with the amount of time it's taking to win a major trophy, right? This notion that, well, no, it actually has to be this season now because we've come so close. And we're not going to be on the cusp forever because other teams might catch up or whatever it might be. All that's to say that I think Emil Smith-Rowe, much like maybe Kai Havertz in the Arteta system, maybe like Ben White to an extent, maybe like Martinelli to an extent, maybe like even Gabriel to an extent. There are a few players that came in and were good players with fantastic natural attributes, but they took a little bit of time to really understand Arteta's system and find their feet in that team. Smith-Rowe maybe could adapt to the system, but it would take time. And ultimately this season, I think Arteta and the club know that it might be time that we don't have to let players bed in now because we have to be elite from the word go. We saw what happens last year if you're not elite from the word go. All it takes is 1 or 2 results in the first half of the season and you can be immaculate up until the end, but the title's gone. So that level of ruthlessness coming from the fan base is now probably going to translate into a level of ruthlessness in the transfer market. And that's why you see that promising youth players that we're talking about. We talk about Emil Smith-Rowe as a youth player, but I think Rowe Walters has been allowed to go on a free. He was on the pre-season tour. They just didn't renew his contract. Kozia Djibri going to Brighton. These are players that were on the bench for a lot of Premier League games at times. Were called upon pre-season and were said to have promising futures. But ultimately, if you want the "I want to win and I want to win now" mentality, and I'm talking to myself here actually, then you don't have room for sentimentality when it comes to these players, and that's the sad reality of the situation. Cutthroat business, results-based business.
I agree on the sentimentality front. But if I still feel like Arteta may convince himself that there's a quality of player there and there's a tactical adjustment that could be made. I mean, we ended the season needing the goal against Everton on the final day, albeit Foden and City had wrapped everything up already. But do you remember, actually, sure, you were in for that watch on that day. You know, we ended the game with Ødegaard and Smith-Rowe as 2-10s, and he inverted Zinchenko and Timber. Very deliberate subs, changed the fullbacks because I needed my 2 best ball players, arguably at fullback, to tuck inside, to progress the midfielders forward. That is the only way, and then it makes the Eze links make a bit more sense now. Because could you not see Eze just perfectly in that position? Because when I see us linked with Eze, my first thought is, for what? I mean, I love the player. I think he's brilliant, but why would we want him? Because if there's no tactical room for Smith-Rowe, I don't see how there's tactical room for Eze, though I acknowledge that there are some differences there. But maybe that's like the next evolution. So I wonder, I think Smith-Rowe is going to be an interesting one to keep an eye on. And yeah, while none of us are sitting here saying he's definitely gone and we want him out, it just looks like it's heading that way. So yeah, we'll kind of keep an eye on Smith-Rowe. But you've actually sort of led nicely onto topic 2, because this is the Goonerverse podcast, 4 people talking about 4 topics in an hour if we can, unless I waffle too much. But the next thing I wanted to talk about is not actually, it's like the second biggest topic of the 4, but I just felt it led nicely on from the Smith Rowe thing, is our academy and its purpose and its success. Some people might not care, and that's totally fine. But Rowe Walters, Kozia Dewberry, both leaving the club, both had a lot of promise. Kozia Dewberry's just gone to Brighton. I think both can feel, and I really have no idea what I guess they should be expecting, but my gut feeling tells me that both can feel like they deserved a little bit more of an opportunity at some sort of cup level, at some sort of pre-season level or whatever. They are leaving with me knowing actually very little about how good they are. Like, I really don't know much about them. And I don't know, Laura, what do you think? I feel like that is a little bit of a concern, but we're challenging for the title, so I don't care, but worth discussing. What do you think?
To be honest, I have to hold my hands up and say I have no idea how our academy works in terms of how they are set up to either fuel a pathway to the first team, or you're there creating individual players that we can then sell off at some point for some sort of money. I have no idea in terms of what the club's priority is. I think we have been spoilt in the past because obviously, and at the moment it feels a lot more pertinent because obviously Saka being a product of the academy, that's the standard to which I think we are holding all of these players that come through is, well, we did that with Saka, so why can't the rest of you follow that same pathway?
No pressure.
So we've been spoiled, but at the same time, one thing I don't agree with is throwing on an 18-year-old for the last 10 minutes of a cup tie. I don't see the point in it. I don't know whether Arteta, being a relatively inexperienced manager, obviously he's his 4th or 5th season here, just doesn't see the point in it either. But personally, I don't understand what that does other than give an 18-year-old 10 minutes in a kind of Carabao Cup tie. Whether that is the type of thing that we would, look to address. Obviously, we need to go a bit further in the cups for us to be able to do this. Is the first thing. But fundamentally, with the academy, I know people get very, very upset about it. I've seen so much anger on social media about us letting these assets go. But I'm probably in your camp, James. I don't really care. I don't really care. If he wasn't good enough for the first team, I don't care. Yes, from a sort of sustainability point of view, we want a strong academy. But for the moment, I didn't know who this player was. I didn't know how good they were. So I don't know what the size of the loss is. So I can't give you an assessment of, gosh, that's a massive mistake. I just don't know.
Do you ever think in football, sometimes things can just be an observation? Like nothing needs to be I think this is good or I think this is bad. It's just something I see, and so
it's also
me,
one of those things that, like, it's not reported on to the same level. So anyone who, unless you are an analyst and you're watching these players in every single day, it's fine to just be like, actually, I have no idea if these 18-year-olds are any good or not. Right. That's it.
Exactly. Like so my opinion is, I think if 2 players like Walters and Kozia Dewberry, who were who reportedly or had reputations for being really good young prospects we had, and they both don't get a chance but also go for no money, my observation is the academy hasn't really done its job there. But I also don't care, if that makes sense. I just see it as like this happened, but are we competing at the first team level? Maybe don't care strong, but I just mean, like, I'm not going to get worked up about it, but I understand why the discussion's there. Sharoy, I feel like you're itching to come in on this.
Did you watch the Inside Hale End YouTube series when it was out? I think it was last season.
No, I should have watched that.
Watch it when you get a minute. Laura, it goes to your point about the way in which the academy is structured, whether it's to sell them or whether it's to integrate them in the first team. So Arteta and Mertesacker actually work really closely together to ensure that the academy team does actually try and play a very similar system with very similar sort of player profiles and identities to the first team, in the hope that people do eventually graduate to the first team, which then goes to the point that the academy hasn't necessarily done its job, maybe. But if I'm looking at recent academy prospects that have left, let's look at Balogun as an example, right? Balogun, we make a huge deal about trying to tie him down to a contract. If we don't think he's good enough for the first team, at least we get value for him. And in all honesty, in hindsight now, I think that might have been a fair price. I think that might have been a decent
great deal.
Yeah.
Yes, aged amazingly. 37 million. Oh my
There you go.
word!
You
Like,
look at Amari Hutchinson. Look, Hutchinson goes to Chelsea. Everyone on the internet is soiling themselves, and you just don't hear about him again. He doesn't play. And this is in a team. He's gone to a team that's completely in the toilet for the whole season, and doesn't really get a look in. And Chelsea fans aren't really talking about him either. So, in that sense, there is an argument to be made that when the players do come through, if they are let go, they're let go with good reason. And also, when you're going to retain them, if we ever saw that level of rotation with an untested youth prospect in the Premier League, aside from when we're like 5-0 up, again, people on the internet would be soiling themselves if you do that at 1-1 when you need a goal. Arteta can't do that. You then look at the cup competitions, even the cups that, people don't really care about, but we say we don't go far enough in those cup competitions and we don't take them seriously enough. Mm-hmm. So you're not really demonstrating that you're taking it seriously if you're bringing on the kids in that either. So you do, it really is, everything is pointing in the direction of, well, right now we need to focus on who is the best. And it is relatively short-sighted, but I think that short-sighted mindset can perhaps be compensated by the way in which we've done business in the first team. Because even though the first team isn't full of academy prospects or youth prospects, they're still pretty young. They've been tied down to pretty good deals. They've all increased value. So we have a level of foresight at that level. And I think that is enough to be able to sustain a pretty successful first 11 and a first team squad for a few years to come. That isn't to say the academy is not important, but that is to say that I don't think it's anything that anyone needs to be getting too worked up about right now. And the only reason that I think people are getting worked up is, again, I think sentiment, if I'm being brutally honest.
Forder.
I'm angry. No, I'm not. I love how on the fence everyone is with this. I look at the big two managers of this past decade, which are Klopp and Pep, and I can understand Arteta is far further down with the amount of chances he's given to our youth. I mean, that's a fact. However, they've been in a position where they are winning Champions Leagues, they are winning titles, they are winning Carabaos and FA Cups. We're not quite there. And I think Arteta's really got to get that position cemented, and then he can start giving the opportunities to the younger players. We know the crown and the jewel in the crown. The jewel in the crown. Sorry. Thank you, Sharoy. I appreciate that. Is Ethan
Ranieri.
Speak. What's just happened? Joy, if you could just translate for me, that'd be fantastic. Don't know what's just happened. Sorry, I'll get back to my point. He has been given the opportunities, and I don't think Arteta is really looking at these players that seriously if he's not giving them the opportunities. If he was, he would be making way for them and making pathways. I do think Cedric and El Neni have been taking up positions in our squads unrightfully. I understand. It goes back to sentiment. El Neni's been a fantastic servant to the club. He came in for a pittance really, and has done a fantastic job. He's been steady, always there, always available. Consummate professional. However, it has blocked pathways, and I think we can finally now, once we start getting rid of the kind of the final dead wood, we can start making positions for some of these players. And I think maybe if Smith Rowe, kind of referring back to our last topic, if he does leave, that gives another possibility of some younger players coming through. Right now, though, I don't think any of these players are good enough to take us to that next step. I don't think Arteta trusts any of these players enough. And I also think part of the reason Mertesacker is working so closely with Arteta in that kind of new Arsenal style is because we've now got a selling kind of point that we can say to some clubs that come in, look, these players are learning their trade underneath that Arteta kind of regime, that they're able to play that at this level in this manner. And I think that's a really clever idea from the club to be kind of saying that. We've seen it multiple times with these young children essentially underneath Pep that are kind of, maybe young children might be a bit different, but they're kids. They're kids, they're coming through at 15, 16, and suddenly they're moving on to clubs like Dortmund and getting these huge kind of wages. We are also hamstrung by the kind of rules set in place for our country. And I think sometimes people don't really look at that. We can't give the professional contracts like other countries can. And then we're kind of in a position where we've either got to give them those opportunities, whether we think they're ready or not, or we have to let them go. So unfortunately, go for it, James.
Chido Obi Martin is in that position, isn't he? I think he's in a position where Bayern Munich can offer him a contract that we can't. So yeah, I mean, there is that. But then I wonder how much of it is about the contract, how much of it is about, maybe a question mark over how many youngsters have really had that opportunity at Arsenal. I wonder whether that does play a part at all.
It's going to be a big thing for these players, right? Because we're all looking at it as if the club is the ultimate arbiter and the club is saying, right, you're not good enough, you need to go. But it could be the club saying, well, if you stick around for another year and a bit, you might get an opportunity. Right. And someone like Sergio Dubry is saying, actually, no, mate, I do think I'm good enough. You haven't really shown me that there's a route because you put someone like Eddie Nketiah on 100 grand a week with the number 14 and he's got limited game time. Where am I going to fit in? I'm going to go to a ball-playing club like Brighton where I think I've got more prospects to play because ultimately these are kids that are footballers and they want to play. And when they ball out in the academy and they go back and they chill out with their boys and their boys are saying, man, but you're not really kicking on. There are people, there are our mates our age at different clubs that are kicking on. You're not. That can get into a young man's head, and ultimately if you are going to play somewhere else, fair play, man. Look, I can relate it to any other profession. Like in my line of work, if I wasn't getting the cases that I wanted to get and another firm was offering me those cases, even if it was an ever so slight pay cut, if I knew that I was going to get that experience and enhance my reputation, I know that I'd be okay in the long run. I might make the move. It's just a sort of professional principle, depending on how keen you are to actually put the work in. So it's not necessarily an indictment of the club or the players. It might just be the club has ambition and as such can't trust someone at that level just yet. And the player has ambition and as such can't wait around for reassurances from the club and then move on.
Yep. Fair point. Do you know what? And the whole time we're talking about it, we're always looking at it from that club angle. But you're right. Like, especially, I think in the case of Sergio Dubry, that is true. I don't think Arsenal did actually want to lose him. But yeah, I probably should have been a touch more research before we entered that topic. But
I don't think it's any coincidence that it's Brighton either. He hasn't. No. He's gone to a club that wants to put the ball on the deck and play.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agree with that. Wow, swiftly through topic 2. Topic 3. I want to talk about Dan Bentley and how he's going to fire us to the title.
Another big topic. Come on. Big Dan Bentley.
Look, we're on the topic of ins and outs and squad building, I guess. This really shocked me. I mean, we are sitting here waiting for this £42 million Italian defender to walk in. And we're going, David Ornstein, tell us. Just give us the information, David. Come on, we're ready. Just whenever. I won't believe it till Ornstein says it. And then he goes, exclusive or whatever he says. Arsenal make contact with Wolves. Oh, Pedro Neto, is it? Over Dan Bentley.
I saw you go live. I saw you go live afterwards.
I did. I was so watching myself. The live stream. I thought, someone help me make sense of this. Yeah. There were a few other reports saying that he's actually coming to be a backup to both Raya and Ramsdale. But then I'm like 30 years old. He's actually quite a good keeper. Like, does he want to be a number 3? Like, I know
he's 31 this month. He's 31 this month.
Yeah, okay, but it's only 1 year older than 30. Like,
but you bring someone in at 31 years old when they're as a third choice keeper. I mean, without sounding too morbid, mate, you ain't got that long to play left. Why does he want to be third choice?
This is what I'm saying. He doesn't have like why would he do? Scott Carson is 37. Everyone goes, yeah, but Scott Carson was 37, and when he got the call from Man City, probably couldn't believe his luck. He thought, yes, are you kidding me? Like, I'm there. The best thing about this whole story, right? When I say like I laughed out loud, I see funny tweets and I sort of have a little giggle to myself, but I laughed out loud on the train station. The initial report from David Ornstein said Arsenal make contact, but Arsenal Wolves they're far apart in their valuations of the player. And I thought, all right, we must be offering 5 million and they want 10 to 15. Like, what's going on? How much do they want for this guy? Because Wolves must recuperate the funds so they can go and reinvest in a keeper. I'm thinking, oh my word, like, we must really want this guy. They want 1 million.
What are we offering?
What are we offering? That's the asking price. What
are we offering? We're literally going in there with like 100 grand, aren't we? Something like really, really expensive.
I reckon it's $1 million in installments over the next decade. So when he's 41, we will have paid off the entire $1 million to Wolves. That's what's going to happen.
No, but like, what? Like $1 million? Look, if you want this guy, I think we can do this. I know PSR issues and all that. I think we can do this deal. That's why the Calafiori thing's taking so long. They're saying to Bologna, look, we need that extra $1 million. If please help us out here. I mean, honestly, back to you, Forder, mate. Okay, let's say we splash out and we spend the $1 million on him. Is he a number 2? Is he a number 3? Like, are we getting ready in case Ramsdale goes? Are we signing him in case, regardless of what happens with Ramsdale? Like, I'm not against this signing. I'm just very perplexed by it.
No, I mean, the 1 million thing, I saw the same tweets. It's just mad. I honestly think Arteta might have an addiction to goalkeepers. I think that might be the thing that's going on here. He just needs a keeper every summer. He's at that point now. He doesn't care who is.
We're going to announce 4 goalkeepers this summer. There's the guy who came in the academy like 2 weeks ago. David Rice, that's 2 already announced. Benny would be the 3rd. And if Ramsdale goes, then we need his replacement.
Before.
We're going to announce 4 goalkeepers in one summer. It's a sickness. Like, this isn't someone needs to tell him, like, this isn't okay. Like, we don't need any more. We had it right at Emi Martinez, and now look where we are. Can we just stop doing this?
No, he's got to be coming in as a 3rd choice, surely. I mean, there's word that we've got a couple of keepers going out on loan, some of the younger lads. I can't see him as a number 2. I was looking at on FB Ref at kind of his stats, even like his passing metrics and stuff. Nothing kind of screams an Arsenal keeper to me. It just seems like we've gone British quota. We might get him for less than $1 million. That's it. I don't understand it at all. We've had links to some kind of ball playing types of keepers that a bit more in the modern mold, but he doesn't scream any of that to me. I think it's just I feel awful right now. I hope he doesn't see this. I'm really sorry if you do, but it just doesn't seem like an Arteta signing, apart from the fact he's a goalkeeper. Anyone else have any ideas?
No.
I honestly, I'm lost there.
James, when you sent me what we were going to talk about today, and you said, Dan Bentley, what's all that about? I had no idea who this was, and I thought it was maybe some sort of, I mean, it sounds like a character from The In-Betweeners. I was like, I have no idea who Dan Bentley is. So I put it into Google, and I was like, okay, this Wolves goalie that we're maybe signing. And I was genuinely, I have no idea who this person is, no idea. But then I thought, wow, we are literally going to announce, 4 goalkeepers. Like, how are they going to, like, do Adidas make enough kits for there to be 4 goalkeepers? Like, at what point do we stop here? So I have nothing to say on it other than
welcome, Dan Bentley.
Welcome. Dan signs. Great.
Well, look, I mean,
he's going to be a cult hero, isn't he?
Yeah.
Right. So, in all seriousness, apparently, because I did do some research, so a couple of things. He's got he's a really good guy. That's great. Yeah, fantastic. Great. I mean, I think I'm all right. If Arteta wants to sign me, I'll happily go to work. I'm happy to keep the troops, happy, entertained, be just like a goalkeeper, put some crosses into the box, that kind of thing. So I don't know if there's something in that. The other thing, he worked with Iñaki Kanya at Brentford. So basically, any goalkeeper who's ever played with Iñaki Kanya is going to get the phone call at some point. Yeah. Arsenal need a keeper, because it's been Runnison, Raya, and I'm sure there's 2-3 more in there. I can't remember, but here's Dan Bentley. So look, I'm by the way, I'm actually fine with doing the deal. I just don't know what to make of it.
I think it's the why though. It's the why we're doing the deal, right? Carl Hine just signed a new contract. The only way this makes any sense to me is Carl Hine has done what we were saying about Rowe Walters and Kozia Dewberry, saying, look, I think I want to play. And if Aaron Ramsdale stays, I'm probably not going to play, because I saw that last season. And even if it goes, I have a feeling you're going to buy someone a bit better, so I'm probably not going to play. Let me go and try my luck elsewhere. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him going out on loan. At which point Arsenal, maybe I'll sit there and say we probably do need a third, just in case, because you're ill-equipped if you don't have one. Can we get one with a bit of Premier League experience, with a character reference from someone we know who isn't going to disrupt the dressing room, that isn't going to screw us in terms of PSR? This guy might be the guy. And I think I read that he had 6 or 7 years with the Arsenal youth as well, from like 2001 onwards. So he has a level of familiarity with the club. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's enough to just appease the squad concerns. But put it this way: when I saw it, I didn't think it was news. I didn't think it was a major signing. I didn't think it was going to be transformative. I didn't think it was anything Arteta particularly wants to do either. I think this is quite literally a non-disruptive, stopgap, safe bet solution. At which point, fair enough.
No, I'm totally on that. The only and I did shamelessly go live on my channel about it. But the thing I really wanted to explore with it was like not so much how good is he? Is this a good or bad signing? It wasn't really anything to do with that. It was more, what does it mean? Does it just mean Hines signed his deal? He's probably going to go on loan. Then brilliant, like you said, does a job in the squad. Don't want to be ill-equipped. Or is this because there's an update on Ramsdale to come soon? Is it a case of just getting something in the works in case he go? I don't know. I was interested to see. There have been conflicting reports. Some saying that he's coming in to potentially be a number 2. Others are saying, no, I think he's just there to play a part in the squad. So we'll see. But look, Dan Bentley, I mean, fine. I've got no issues with it. It just made me laugh, especially when, you know, Wolves' ridiculous demands of $1 million came through. I thought, well, Arsenal, if you're going to go up to that fee. By the way, this is in football terms. I would love $1 million, may I just say. Everyone's in the world of football. $1 million is not a lot, but you know, before people go, oh yeah, you know what people will be like. More transfer stuff. Calafiori, it's close to happening apparently. Although still, David Ornstein won't say anything about it, but that's fine. Sharoy, last week I think, to be fair, you were like, fine, but I mean, it's not a priority. How do you feel a week on about the prospect of signing him?
I think, again, pure guesswork, not an ITK. This is pure guesswork. I just have a feeling that he was probably on the recruitment team's radar. They saw that he had a good tournament. They knew that potential suitors were going to come in quickly, so they perhaps accelerated, but this wasn't a priority signing at the outset of the window for me. And I think with the links to Calafiori, with the links to Bentley, I think it may well be a case of the really important signings in the really important positions are probably just tougher deals to get done for us, which is why we're not hearing about them, which is why they might drag on until slightly later in the window. And the signings that I called the desirables, but not the essentials, are perhaps ones that we could maybe get done slightly earlier in the window. Having said all of that, and this probably does align with what I said last week, I can see exactly where he fits in, particularly if we're talking about moving someone like Kivior on. If I had the choice, I'd probably keep Kivior and move on Zinchenko, which has proven to be controversial in my WhatsApp group, but I don't think we have time to delve into that today. But I think it completely makes sense. And it's nice just having a player that everyone identifies in the tournament as one of the bad men in the tournament, and we're the ones that get him. Because that's very rare. You know, that's very rare. We're usually sort of eating off the crumbs at the big boys' table in years gone by, right? But now, we're taking the main course when it comes to the defenders in that tournament. And that feels good. So yeah, I'm happy. Long story short.
I knew basically nothing of it. I knew of his name, and I knew a player called Calafiori existed, who was a left back before Euro 2024. But I watched all of Italy's games closely, and I just fell in love with him in 3 games. I just watched him and went, wow, this guy's proper. We weren't even linked with him. So when it actually came through, we were interested. I was just totally sold. Laura, I don't know. How do you feel about the prospect of him coming in? 42 million, it's looking like.
Yeah, I think I'm the same, as in I can't say that I've seen a huge amount of this player outside of the Euros. What I do understand about him, though, is that he's very good in the air. He's obviously very tall, which is, you know, a nice addition, although we've obviously, you know, Gabriel and Saliba already quite big. I think the thing that I think we need to get used to, or I need to get used to, and you guys talked about it last week, is having groups of players in a position whereby we can cycle through them as and when needed. So no, he's not a priority and he's not slotting into a kind of gap in the team. But I think we've had so many combinations at the left back position, Zinchenko, Kiwior, Tomiyasu. Don't know where Timber is going to play either.
Everywhere.
Obviously, he can
Absolutely everywhere.
So for me, it would be a very, very good signing to have another versatile player that we could basically have, number one, fight for position, and number two, slot in when the game is as better suited to him. So I can't say I know a huge amount about the player, but the profile of that type of player, I think would add a lot to that kind of little group that we've got in the left back position, because I still don't know who the starter is, but I think that's okay. And it gives us that flexibility. I think, very good at heading the ball defensively, very big, very strong. I think he's played outside of Italy before, I think, as well. So that sort of criticism of, Italian football is a little bit slow. I think he would be fine. The only thing that I think, he's obviously had that terrible injury early on in his career. I don't know what he did, but a really, really bad injury in his knee. So the speed of the Premier League is obviously slightly different, but as a profile, I like the look of it. And I think, he looks like he would fit very nicely into the most attractive team in the Premier League. I think he's got the right kind of like bone structure, he's got the right look, the headband I can work with. I think he'll really suit Red as well. So thumbs up from me.
He makes me feel wholly inadequate. Looking at him. I can't lie.
The people, I mean, this is again before he was linked with Arsenal. Twitter was sharing pictures of him sort of saying he looks like a 90s Italian defender. The minute he's linked with Arsenal, everyone's sharing his injury record, which is just typical. For people who don't know, he did have a really bad knee injury in 2018. I think he missed a year of football. And it was really bad. Like, I don't know the exact details, but I was listening to someone speak about it on a podcast, and I think it was like, pretty shattered up that knee, which is but he made a big comeback, and he's played for Roma, he's played for Genoa, he's played for Basel, and now he's at Bologna. So 4 clubs since 2020, which is quite a lot. Arsenal would be his 5th, so he's moved around a lot. He's had a lot to deal with the recovery from that knee injury. He's just made his first appearances in Italy shirt. That win against Albania, I think, in the first game of the Euros, that was his 3rd cap for Italy. So he's still very new to all this, but the talent seems there. I think he fits in perfectly. And when you're talking about the rest of the squad there, Laura, like, for me at the moment, we've got 4 potential left backs: Kiwior, Zinchenko, Tomiyasu, Timber. But I feel like they're kind of all thrust over there because we know White, Saliba, Gabriel all start. And I think when you're looking at the squad, you add Calafiori, and it's like a trickle-down effect. They'll all just kind of shuffle back along, where Timber will probably play more right back. I think we saw that in the last game of the season. That's where Arteta will see him a lot. Tomiyasu, for me, is just a centre-back. Put him in front of goal to head everything away. Kiwior is a centre-back. We know that he's not a left-back. And then Zinchenko has a unique something to bring to this team, though I think a lot of people have kind of moved beyond him. Now, some players might leave, but I think Calafiori comes in and just says, okay, forget these 4 options we have here. This is our guy, and everyone else is competing elsewhere. But where are you with it, Ford? I mean, do you like the player? Do you see him being a left back? I think he's going to push Gabriel as well, may I say. I don't think Gabriel's spot is completely safe, if I'm honest, though I love him.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I remember the Bayern game, and we were crying out for a player like this to come in and give us that progressive pass, essentially. I was looking at his passing kind of metrics and the kind of his average kind of direction of passes, and he has got a fantastic pass kind of cross field, which would be perfect to kind of that Odegaard zone 14 kind of area. He's currently, I believe, in the top 5 leagues. He had the most assists of all centre backs as well. So
really?
he's obviously, so right now he is someone that could kind of step in and give us a different element in attack from the defence, which sounds a bit strange, but we've only kind of really seen that with Zinchenko, who's changed our build-up. I think this is a player who could play out on the left and predominantly will. But I feel that if we're in a knockout game like the Champions League and we are a goal behind, he's someone that we can take out Gabriel, shift him into the centre, and then play a completely different way. I think the quote on his injury was that when he had the injury, they're pretty sure he was going to end his career. And they said they hadn't actually seen one as bad as that apart from in motocross. I mean, he tore all of his kind of ACL, MCL, everything. It was just kind of exploded. So, he went through a lot of physio to kind of go back for it. And looking at the quotes from him, he seems like a really resilient kind of guy. And we know with Arteta, the profiles he looks at, he does a lot of kind of personality profiling. This lad fits it perfectly. I mean, this is a guy who's gone from being told, you're not going to kind of continue your career in football, possibly not walk again, to getting back to the top level, going back to Italy, and now kind of, playing in the Euros and forming one of the best centre-back partnerships at the Euros. I think if you look at his XGs as well, like XG for assist, he's obviously right up there. Aerially, he dominates. He's really good in the tackle. And I think this is probably the first player in a one-to-one situation that could rival Tomiyasu for duels. I think Tomiyasu is by far our best kind of 1v1 kind of defender. He could be up there with him. He could. I say this like I've been watching him for years and years and years. And I have been watching a lot of tape on him over the last couple of weeks because originally it seemed to me like one of these deals where we've gone in and Juve eventually get him. It's one of those. But it seems like Tomiyasu, this is a player that we've been watching, we've been looking at for a long time, and quite rightfully we've gone jump on it now, get the deal done before anyone else gets in. Before, Chelsea comes along and does their usual thing, looks at who we're looking at and takes the deal. But he does. He looks like someone that could change us. And we've now got an option, if he does come in, where we can play a back three. We can give Gabriel some rest. We can let Saliba rest as well. And we can, bring Ben White in. So now we've got Timber that can play on that right back rather than being just simply a left back. Now we've got so many options. I think, sure, you said about Kivior staying. The way I look at it right now, I don't think Kivior's stock's going to be any higher than it is now. His playing time's going to kind of decrease now. He's just come off a season where he played at left back and did remarkably well, much better than I think anyone kind of expected in that position. But I look at Kivior's profile, and defending wide areas is a weakness for him, and we ask that a lot from our centre-backs. I don't think he doesn't seem to have that confidence in his passing and bringing the ball out either. He's definitely got the ability, but he seems like a very shy kind of individual and doesn't seem to be kind of willing to break the lines. And that's something, that we'll get from this player coming in. So that's where I kind of stand with it at the moment.
Yeah.
Before anyone jumps in, I have to say, you absolutely must become his agent. If I wasn't sold before that, I was listening to that and I was like, bring him to the Emirates now.
Yeah.
That was superb.
Having said that
was superbly convincing.
I do still feel that we are lacking overlapping fullbacks in our squad. And I would love to see someone come in that will overlap, but I have faith in Arteta and the team. They've been fantastic with the transfers over the last 3 or 4 years. So,
yeah, I mean Arteta he's killed the overlapping fullback. He's just said no more. Well, I mean Ben White does it, to be fair, but it's just like do it, but like later when we need a goal. Please don't make it your thing. I love Calafiori.
Bukayo Saka is quite a good overlapping fullback as well.
Let's
if you want to try him in that position, I know no one's really been talking about it for the last couple of weeks, but he's a great option.
No, let's not enter those discussions because they'll cancel the podcast. I love Calafiori. I just, again, based off 3 games of the Euros, but like I was totally sold. Like I said, this was the only bias was being half Italian. I wasn't watching from an Arsenal perspective. And the way he drove through the Croatian midfield to get the equaliser for Italy in that game was just, I mean, this is a guy, like you said, I mean, you did a much better job of explaining the knee injury than I did. And here he is, like, just releasing the ball off the tip of his toe before he gets clattered. It's just like, he doesn't care. And I don't know. I mean, that's the kind of, you're right, mentality, personality, whatever that Arteta would want in the squad. And he just looks bloody brilliant as well. Against Spain, Italy were a bit all over the place. We were totally outplayed. But not in the sense that, like, oh, Italy got into a good shape and like defended well, and you know, 2 banks of 4 and all that. Italy weren't even really defending that well. It was down to like the individuals, like that kind of, you know, it's kind of in their nature, just be good defenders. And they just had to stand up to the fight kind of as individuals. And I thought Calafiori looked great in that sense too. So yeah, I'm really excited about the signing personally.
Sorry, I was also going to say, he is 6'3" and a handsome man.
Yes.
Sorry, as his agent, I thought I better get that across.
It's always worth mentioning. I'm hoping there'll be like a bit of a trend. Like, you know, when Gyökeres started scoring all those goals for Sporting, people were doing a celebration. What was it? This or, you know, that? Like, maybe people just be wearing like the headband maybe around the Emirates now, just as like a something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, what, Lee Judges, Julian and Robbie wearing the headband looked at daft, wouldn't it? I mean,
I would pay to see that.
The right people wearing them.
Well, maybe that's something for the announcement video. I don't know. Let's see. Look, we've got 5 minutes left, and actually, as I can't even get my sentence out. This topic probably deserves 25 minutes of the podcast, I'm honest. But I've wasted everyone's time already with Wi-Fi problems. I think we all just need to say a line on Bukayo Saka and how he just gave a good old middle finger. I'm not going to do it. I'll do the other one. Middle finger to, you know, all the haters and to all the doubters by shouldering responsibility for England, as he does so often for Arsenal as well. Saving Gareth Southgate's job. It was Jude before, and now it was Saka with this goal. And then doing all that, playing brilliantly, being asked to do a shift at left wing back, which he did. The whole game was a shift at right wing back in the first place, and then stepping up to bury his penalty, as all England players actually did brilliantly. I think, you know, in a podcast that's covering the big topics from the last week, it'd be wrong not to just mention what a massive day that was in an England shirt for Bukayo Saka. And I just know that every goon around the world was super happy for him. Who wants to take this first?
I'm more than happy. I was at the Tollington, literally right opposite the Emirates for this. And when Saka scores that goal, I've not seen an England goal celebrated like that in an Arsenal pub ever. That was like Saka scored for Arsenal, and the chant afterwards wasn't England, England. It was Arsenal, Arsenal. Like we went off, and then he steps up for that penalty. And I can only imagine what's going through that guy's head, right? Because, I mean, I don't know if anyone, these are really micro examples, but if you have like a really, really horrible argument with someone that you care about, or you make a terrible mistake at work and your boss absolutely reprimands you like in a horrible way, i.e., as I said, on a very micro level, what happened to him when he missed that penalty at the Euros, it evokes trauma, like it evokes a trauma response. And it's literally fight or flight. And so many men twice his age would have caved under that pressure. And I'm just talking about those smaller life examples. This guy had that from a huge percentage of the nation, coupled with racial abuse, coupled with that public shaming and disappointment. Buries it. Absolutely buries it. And then goes on and says, well, in actual fact, you know, you can make a mistake and you have a choice. You have a choice as a man. You put yourself back in the firing line or you don't. And without making the England thing an Arsenal thing, I think a lot of that mentality comes from Mikel Arteta, if I'm being honest with you. I think the way in which the Arsenal fans and Arteta sort of took him under their wing after that horrible disappointment and said, no, you are still brilliant. You are still the star boy. This will not affect you. And I think having the home that he has at Arsenal Football Club, I could almost see it like when he was stepping up to take that penalty. It was like he was like singing like Lose Yourself by Eminem in his head, like feet fail me or not. This is the only opportunity that I got. Bang! And it's in. I was so happy for him. He's loved worldwide, nationwide. He's a massive, massive, massive asset. Other fans are jealous we have him. And Bukayo, you're probably not watching this, but I know you know this. We love you, bro.
Mm-hmm. You're up, Laura.
The only thing I disagree with there is, and this may be controversial, I think his penalty was a scuff, and I don't think he buried it.
I need to watch it back.
I think you need to watch it back. It's still a good penalty because it's right in the corner, and I think the keeper goes the wrong way. But of the five, it's probably the least well struck one.
Not bad for a scuff. Not bad for a scuff.
not bad for a scuff, right? But other than that, there's not much more I can add really, other than, you know, he, I think, is one of those players who is so efficient in what they do that in this current England setup, it's so bad to the point where I feel like he is producing moments of brilliance in spite of what the people around him are doing. 100%. So Harry Kane is getting in the way. Phil Foden in that picture is getting in the way. So it makes the achievements and the moment even more brilliant that you are able to do that in, at best, a completely dysfunctional England side, but at worst, one that is actively stopping you doing what you do best. So to then come up with that moment, I think just speaks volume of mentality, skill, and you know, the best way that you can sum it up is, you know, we can speak for ages about Gareth Southgate's substitutions, but ultimately there is one player you want on the pitch when you need something, and that is Saka at the moment. Yes, it was Bellingham the other day, but you look who stays on the pitch, it's Saka and Bellingham. Look who's coming off, Foden, Kane, etc. That's, you know, that's it really. And, you know, the redemption from the last time is just, I felt physically sick watching him take that penalty, but, you know, the sky's the limit. Ballon d'Or in the next 3 years.
Wow, big shout.
I think efficient is such a brilliant way of putting it as well. You articulated that so well with the efficiency. That really is such a brilliant way of putting it. The output based upon the little things that we know he can do. Yeah, bang on.
I think that goes against him, you know, though. I think we appreciate it because we love him, but I think in terms of the way he's viewed outside of maybe Arsenal fans and fair football fans, I think the fact that he's not got Dembele's stepovers or Salah's blistering pace or whatever. By the way, I'm not saying that makes you better footballers, but they're just like very like easily spottable attributes, I guess. I'm explaining that well, what I mean.
Yeah, very exciting.
Yeah,
there's an aesthetic bias.
What's that?
There's an aesthetic bias. That's what it is, you know.
Basically, he's like, what's the quickest, best way to achieve this? And that people might take that as a criticism. I don't care how you achieve what you're trying to achieve. I'm not saying, by the way, he's not quick. I'm not saying he's not skillful or brilliant to watch or exciting to watch. He's all those things. But there's not like one thing that stands out as like his main attribute or the main thing he does brilliantly. He just does everything so well. And I think the world-class conversations are completely fair. I think 3-4 months ago, I was a bit like, am I there yet? But I mean, how many right wingers in the world are there better than him? I put him above Dembele. I put him above Rafinha. I put him above. I mean, who else? Salah's probably the only one I still have up there, but Salah wasn't great the last 3, 4, 5 months of the season. So Forder, over to you, man. The final words on Bukayo Saka.
Hard acts to follow. There's not much really to add, is there? Like, I feel like he's like my son when I watch him. I want him to do well, you know. He's a fantastic player, and that there is this aesthetic bias because we've got the limp, and that's been kind of bounded around about him. But he never seems to shirk responsibility. He's always there. He always takes his man on. He's always willing to have that shot. He had, I believe it was 8 touches in the opposition box in that game, which is more than Harry Kane, I believe, in the entire tournament. He's now our highest goal scorer in major tournaments. Like over the last 2 tournaments, he's just surpassed David Beckham for goals in major tournaments. He's now in the top 10 for goals in major tournaments for England. He is an incredible player, and he's never, ever kind of given that praise. He's won the last 2 years, I believe, English Player of the Year. And there's never a shout about it, and he never seems to kind of wear that ego. He's just the most down-to-earth player, and we are thoroughly lucky to have him. I am so pleased he scored that goal.
Yeah, me too. And as we're coming to the very end of this podcast, my Wi-Fi has decided to crap out on me a little bit again. So that is a great place to leave it. But Bukayo Saka deserved more of a conversation. I knew we probably weren't going to give it all the time it needed, which is why there is a video out on this channel right now talking about what makes him such a special player, looking at really the mentality side of things, because those quotes that Shroy touched on, I think it's his mentality as well as his talent that sort of puts him above many others, in not just in his position, just in football in general. I'm going to invite you all to, because you're all brilliant. I'm so thankful that you all joined me. Just let everyone know where they can find you. Laura, I know we were on FK's latte firm as well. You've done lots of stuff in the Arsenal media, but tell everyone where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter. That's where I live. So I'm Laura Kirk 12. 90% of it is very, very unserious football commentary.
I mean, I'm gutted we're not going to have a year of Rob Edwards tweets. Let's put it that way.
Oh, don't you worry. I will always find a way to get Rob Edwards on the timeline.
Fair enough. And Forder on football. Tell everyone where they can find you.
So you can find me on YouTube at Fulham on Football, or on X as it's now called, Fulham on Footy. Thanks to the eye roll there, Laura. I really appreciate that. But I've now got to my 200 subscribers, thanks to you, James, coming on to my pod. So I'm just starting out, but absolutely loving it.
Not just me, you've had great chats with Graham, Dan Potts, Robbie as well. To everyone, go check out that content. And of course, Sharoy's voice. Thank you for your co-hosting, because I was just, I didn't know if the internet was going to do its thing today. But mate, let everyone know where they can find you.
They don't, you know what? Until I upload a video on my YouTube channel, I'm going to stop asking people for whatever. You can find me at the Goonerverse every week. This is my home, and honestly, Forder, Laura, thank you so much. I looked at the time on that recording, and I couldn't believe we were going for over an hour. That was so fun. Thank you, for real.
Yeah, appreciate
so glad.
Honestly, echo all that. Everyone, if you missed last week's with Alex and Jess, go check that out. A lot of the conversation's still relevant a week on. I don't think that will be true throughout the season, so I may as well push the previous podcast. And that's even true of the very first episode we did, just me and Sharoy. Because of this Man City things going on in the background. So if you want to know more about Man City versus the Premier League, we did discuss that about a month ago. Again, big thank you to you all, and check out all the content coming out this week. See you in a bit. Really hope you've enjoyed another episode of the Goonerverse podcast with Arsenal fans from around the Arsenal world giving their amazing thoughts. A big thanks to our guest today. If you do want to follow this podcast on the go, you can. It's available on podcast platforms as well. Join us next week where we'll get more Arsenal fans to talk all things Arsenal. A big thank you again.